Hello there guys, my name is JODA and welcome back to another episode of Space Engineers, where today I'm showing off something that I did teaser at the other day, and it's called the Nautilus. And what is the Nautilus? Well, essentially the Nautilus is a craft that I've been working on for a while, and essentially what it is a orbital space station type of thing that is quite small but has a lot to it, and there's quite a few nifty bits and bobs in its design that allows you to add on to it and make a bigger station. So let us take a gander around its body and exterior. Now essentially what we've got at the front is we have all the cargo. So you have this large area around this these cargo containers that allows you to park up other ships so you can refuel or, you know, just pull materials from it so you can refine them, because you can do that on here as well as assemble. So essentially you've got all this cargo that is stored up in the front, and there are three cargo containers here, so essentially you can just stock up or pull stock from them. Again, it's great for refueling, so if you did have this station far in space, you could, you know, coordinate with it to park up and pull out fuel that it would have on it and all that other gubbins. And it'll be it's a really cool idea. I'd love to do something like this with it, maybe in the past, where you know, in survival series or stuff, you could have this type of thing where you wouldn't necessarily live on it, but you'd go back to it every so often just to pick materials out and whatever else. And it'd be really cool going from space station to planet and back again. It'd be really cool to see. But yeah, so essentially what we've got is we've got 4 large wings on it that are the solar farms, and essentially the reason why I've sort of staggered them like this and changed the position from vertical to horizontal on the one set is because I wanted them to get the maximum sunlight to them, and I didn't want one casting a shadow over the other. So that is why those are there. We then have this control pod that is set up to the sort of linking section of the craft. So if you were to design and develop more pods to add on to this to increase the space or the capacity of this craft, you could add them on via these sort of docking rings here, which I find really cool, and they're really nifty. They're very simple, they're just 4 merge blocks, and essentially you just link it on. There is no connection for oxygen, so the pod would have to have its own oxygen supply, which is a little bit of a bother. I'm still looking to try and work that out with the version 2 of this. But yeah, it's a really nifty thing to have, because as you can see here, I've actually linked on a control pod. Now the control pod is essentially a pod that you would use to fly the ship in sort of tight maneuvers and stuff like that. So if you needed to park this station up with a bigger station, you'd be flying it from this control pod, because you've got a lot better viewing angles and whatever else than the central position that is in this craft. So we have that. We then also have another connector, which is just for oddments if you did need another connection to this craft for whatever reason. Now we've got this big ring with 4 pods on the outside. Now what these actually do, other than provide forwards and backwards thrust to the main station, is these also house different sort of attributes to them. So the ones for living, the ones for keeping clean, the other ones for operations like refining and assembling, and the other ones for cryogenics. So we actually have like 4 pods that are dedicated to certain things, and the best part about it is, like off the station on the Martian, if you guys have seen that, essentially the pods have gravity that faces this way. So all you're basically doing is you'll be standing on that walkway in there, and you'd basically float down to them, and then you'd be pulled into the gravity well, and then you'd sort of land on your feet on the floor, and then you'd be able to walk around as normal. And no matter what orientation the ship was in, you'd be the right way up to, you know, your own orientation, which is brilliant. Then we have pushing to the back is the sort of the fuel pod. So this is like I said the fuel pod, but this is where like the main reactors are. They're not currently on because the ship is being predominantly run by the solar power and the batteries. And yeah, so essentially these house 4 large reactors, which only really need to be on if you're struggling for power and you really need a quick recharge to everything. And they can help out, and they do have their uses. And I do think with having a station like this, it is good to have like everything solar powered, but there needs to be a manner of being able to move the craft without relying on the sun, because what if the solar panels break off or whatever else? You've got no other source of power unless you were to put reactors on, and that is the reason why they're like backup generators essentially. So yeah, I think what we'll do now is we'll actually go on inside the craft and show you guys all of its gubbins within it. And I like this craft, to be honest, but I really want to make a version 2, because this is version 1, and I really want to make a version 2 that sort of takes all these, like increases the level of usability the ship has, and maybe make it a bit more pretty, because it's the first time I've done this. I haven't really built stations that much in the past, and I think this could be improved on quite largely. So yeah, so what we've got is, if we move to the front, we have some sort of lovely viewing ports that you sort of enables you to see out to most places. Now, I did want viewing to be a big thing in this craft, because it's pointless having this craft that's floating above Earth. With it, what's the point of having a station if you can't see from every angle? And that's my point. It's like you really want to be able to perform reconnaissance, not just looking straight down at the planet. You want to be able to look around everywhere, so you can see exactly what's going on this planet or around you in space. So yeah, it's kind of a good thing that we've got all these windows, and it adds a lot more lighting. So you don't need lights actually within the craft, because if you notice, I don't actually have any lights in here. There's only lights in the main sort of living quarters, and the main reason for that is I don't really feel you need them with the sunlight that comes through and the natural light that comes through, even when you're facing away from the sun. So as we come in this room, we have some plants here, which they are obviously synthetic, because this is a non-oxygen zone. And then we have some screens that are just displaying some bits of information, as well as being able to access the cargo directly from here. So you can manage your cargo from the actual cargo area itself. However, you'd have to fly around with the hydrogen pack on, because there is no gravity. The only bits that are gravity, there's 5 areas. You've got the 4 pods and the 1 main hub in the middle, which is actually what we're going to head to now. So there are a lot of doors to pass through with this station, but that's just again for fail safes and whatever else. If everything goes wrong, you can shut a door and stop everything from depressurizing. So let us go into the control pod, which essentially is, again, as I said, the place where you'd be performing your really tricky maneuvers. So in here we have a really good viewing arc. We can see everything that's going on around us. We are facing forwards, and we can even see a little bit below us as well, which is good. So it enables us to be able to react quite quickly, because we know exactly where we are in terms of everything else, which is quite cool. And then if you actually notice on the pod, we actually have our own oxygen supply, which is dictated by the sun strength. So depending on how far or what orientation you're away from the sun, depends on how much oxygen will be pumped into this room. But you can be in here without your helmet on and still be able to breathe and whatever else, because that is another issue. With having no oxygen around the rest of the ship, you need to put like these areas in that allow you to sort of recharge or whatever, so you can slurp up some oxygen and bugger off again. And that's essentially what I wanted to do with this pod, because the majority of the cargo area and this sort of long rod that's going up it doesn't have oxygen, but there are the areas that do have it, which are the living areas where you would need to take your helmet off. So what we have here is we have an oxygen farm, which is just literally strapped to an air vent, and essentially that's just pumping air directly into this room. And it's doing an okay job, but because of its position to the sun, it's not really giving out too much oxygen at the moment, which is a bit crap. But again, you'd position it a bit better, so you'd be able to pump as much oxygen as you could through that room and be able to take your helmet off and whatever else. So let us head down into the hab, which is like the main living quarters. And as you would notice, we have gravity in here now. So we have gravity and lots of oxygen. So we could be able to take our helmet off in here and wander around. And we have control of the ship from here as well. This is that central position I was talking to you guys about. And essentially this just enables you to control the ship from a central point rather than an offset point. But you can't really see a lot, and you can't really see where you're going unless you have cameras. So yeah, in here we have just lots of open room and space, but we do have access to a med bay. We have access to look at the oxygen tanks to see how full they are. We also have the radio control block here, so we can control that to go to GPS points around the planet, and essentially it could circle the planet quite nicely. And it'd be really cool to see that in sort of fast sped up footage, but at the moment this thing only travels in remote control mode at like 2 meters a second, which I'm not sure why it does that, but it does, and I haven't been able to sort it out or fix it, so I've kind of had to deal with it. So upstairs on the upper parts of the hab, we essentially have this area where you've got chairs that you can just sort of look out and just chill out and just see where you are and just relax and whatever else and just watch the world go by, literally. And yeah, so as we head through this door now, we will go back into an area that doesn't have gravity, doesn't have oxygen, and what we drop into is the reactor room. So in here we have doors that take us down into the reactors where we are able to repair them. So if these were to ever take damage for whatever reason, we can repair them and fix them up and get them ready to go again. So once we're through there, we'll head back again, because there's not a lot to show you down there. There's just 4 reactors and a couple of doors to get to said reactors. It's the other pods that are really the special things, because I like the other pods. So what we'll do is we'll basically just go 1, 2, 3 and then 4, and essentially just work through these rooms one by one, and I'll show you how they work. So again, much like the Martian, where their station has a feature where in these pods they have their own gravity and their own orientation. When you get to these pods, you have your own gravity, you drop in, and then you're walking on the edge of said sort of ring, and you're on the outer sort of circumference of this craft. And basically these pods just house different features. So the different features that these pods have is this one has cryogenics. So this has loads of space to put people into cryogenic sleep, be it they're prisoners, or be it they're people that are criminals or whatever else, or be it they're just people that need to sleep because you're travelling quite far and you need to sort of sleep, because if you didn't, you could probably be like an extra 10 years older by the time you get to your destination. So that's essentially why that's there, and I felt like it was an important thing, especially for a craft that would potentially be doing long distance flying all the time, and it just made a little bit more sense in my head to stick that in as its own separate pod. I did try and put it into the bedroom areas, but the bedroom areas kind of took over. So now what we'll do is we'll move to the next one. So we'll jump into this one and we'll just fall down, and as you can see again, it's no gravity until you get to like the edge of the doorways, and then you'll essentially drop through. Now this is like the bathroom area, so this is where you'd come, you'd be able to have a seat and wait around and then wait for a shower to come free. And essentially what you can do is you can go to the toilet, you can go to the shower, get changed, and come out and bugger off up again. And that is essentially it. Each room has the same feature, and it looks exactly the same. So that's that. So then what we have is, if we push up that tube and go to the outside door, what we can do is we'll go all the way down here, and this takes us into the living area, which is one of my favourite areas because it's the most cluttered. And I really like cluttered in space stations because it makes it a bit more lived in. So essentially what we have is we've got some tables with some chairs, which these tables are actually fuse boxes, which I've ground down from a mod, which does look pretty cool, to be honest. And then we have a pool sort of snooker set where we can play and whatever and just kill time. Then we have some shelves that enable you to just store stuff on, and then we have the lockers running behind that. And then we have the seats and the beds. So this is where people would come to sleep. Now there is only like 12 beds in this whole station, but I think it's enough, because I think 12 people on this station is more than enough to sort of keep it running or whatever. And yeah, I've got lots of seating, because again, seating's just crucial in this, because you just want to sit down and chill out and look and watch the world go by, and you get a different view from every sort of area you go to, which is really nice and really cool, because we're actually in a different orientation to the station now, which kind of boggles my brain a little bit. But if you actually look, we're in a different orientation to the solar panels now, which is quite cool. So what we'll do now is we'll sort of get back to here, and we'll fly back up, and we'll just keep those doors open because I really can't be bothered. And essentially we will fly to the one that we haven't looked at yet, which is this one, I believe, anyway, if I've got the right one. And we'll just fly through all these double doors and whatever else. They're all there for safety, because again, the fear of depressurization is always quite scary. Now as we walk into this very noisy room, what we actually have is we have lots of assemblers and arc furnaces and whatever else, and we have lots of production. But notice I've managed to try and stick as many efficiency modules onto these things as possible, because the issue I had with these was every time I put them down, even with the amount of solar panels and batteries I have, the power always seemed to go low when you started to fly the craft. And with all these efficiency modules sort of put in place, they actually help out quite a lot and bring the power usages back down to normal levels. So yeah, we also have oxygen generators here which are hooked up to the arc furnaces, and yeah, essentially those just produce extra oxygen if needed and if the oxygen farms aren't really doing it for you. So yeah, those are the rooms in this craft, and there is quite a bit to it. I know it does need a lot of refining, but I really would like to build a second version because I feel like this version's sort of too far gone to maybe pimp it out even more. But I'd like to maybe investigate into making a craft that could potentially have small ship blocks onto it as well, kind of like that Ava Slash build I looked at on Wednesday. So yeah, this is the ship flying around. As you can see, it does get up to speed quite nicely, and it does tend to work quite well. And we do have controls for shutters, because there are shutters within this as well, so we can shut the shutters if we do need to close off the windows. That is only on sort of the longest sections of the ship. There's not any, there aren't any shutters on any other parts of the windows besides the long strips of the arms for the where you'd sort of travel to get to the other pods, because I felt that those were the critical important areas, because if those windows were to break, it would depressurize, but if the other windows were to break, it wouldn't depressurize because it's an already unpressurized area, so it wouldn't really matter. These were the most critical ones, so I figured we need more attention to those. So yeah, this is the Nautilus. It's not the best thing in the world, and it's not the worst thing in the world, I don't think. There are only minimal mods like Ecosta's stuff and a couple of other things, and I'll make sure to link them in the workshop page. But if you guys have enjoyed this, please go and check it out on the Steam Workshop. The link will be in the description below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!